What is going on, YouTube people? Neo Cards and Comics here. Let's talk about cleaning, pressing, repairing cards. This seems to be an issue that, it came up a couple weeks ago. I touched on it on a Sunday video, but people are still discussing it. And I never really did like a dedicated long form chat about this. And I'm going to come at it from a little bit of a different perspective, I think, though, a majority of people seem to agree with me. Generally speaking, I'll just kind of lead with this. If the card's not being like legitimately altered, like something is being added or removed from it, like glue is being added to it to glue down a corner, or paper is being added to it, or it's being trimmed to get the edges cleaned up, like that sort of stuff, I'm clearly not okay with. If you're wiping down the surface of a Chrome card with a little help from some stuff, I don't know that I see a huge problem with that, as long as what you're using is not actually harming the card. If you're pressing down a corner or rolling back a corner that's got peeled up, we'll show some examples here in a minute. As long as the card's not being trimmed, I don't know that I have a problem with that. And part of my perspective on this is that, anyone that's watched the channel for a while knows I spend a lot of time in the comic book world. And these practices, and I'm going to show some examples, are 100% accepted as normal. In fact, you could pay CGC to press a book for you. You can send it to them, pay a few extra bucks, and they'll press the book for you while it's there. Like, that's how acceptable of a practice it is. And I know the grading companies, both comics and cards, have loose language on, what you can and can't do. What does restoration mean? What does cleaning mean? Where do they draw the line? I think, honestly, part of the problem is I don't think that they can detect most of this stuff. I honestly think that they can't. If you're wiping, like the Herbert here, if you're wiping that stain, this is the before, the famous photo now, this is the before where there's some sort of gunk on the card there. And then they use the magical potion to get it off. My guess is whatever they're using, whatever concoctions they're using, once it dries and is wiped off, you probably can't really tell it's there. At least for the amount of time and effort that a grading company is putting in to grade these cards. We've talked about this before a ton on the channel. Most cases, they're not taking more than a minute to grade a card, give or take. So by the time you look at corners, edges, surface, move the card around a little bit, are you really going to sit down and do, CSI, PSA and do a chemical analysis on the front of the card to see if it, has some extra little juice on it or not? Probably not. As long as whatever you're using does not actually harm the card, I just don't know that I have a huge problem with this. Like, to me, this is fine. I have no issue with this at all. Once again, as long as whatever they're using does not actually harm the front of the card or have any long-term repercussions, and maybe that's the part that we don't know. I don't know. But I think the reason this stuff slides through is because they can't detect it. I really don't think they can detect it. This is another one that I mentioned earlier. This corner got dinged. Here's the before, here's the after. As long as you're not trimming this, as long as you're not putting like a little dab of something in there to hold it down, if you're using a little tool to kind of flatten it back out again and it stays like that after you flatten it out, I don't have a problem with that. And here's the, how is the grading company supposed to catch that? If there's no discernible marks or anything, how the hell would they ever know that it was there? So how do we expect them to catch it? And who am I to throw a fit about it if a grading company can't even catch it? People are saying, oh, they should disclose that they did this to the corner. Why? If no one knows, you can't see it. Like, it's not affecting the card in any way, at least in this case. You know what I mean? Maybe someone butchered it and it's a different story. But once again, remember, I'm looking at this from the comic perspective. I'll show you some stuff. The comic book cleaner and pressers, guys, that work on this stuff, what they do is wizardry. It is absolutely amazing how they turn these books around. And it's 100% fine and accepted and encouraged. It's just 100% normal. This in comic books, the comic book people look at us like we're crazy. They're like, wait, you guys have a problem with that? I don't understand. If I could fix that corner and it brings it back to its original shape, why wouldn't you do that? They look at us like we're nuts. And to be frank, most people seem to agree. You know, I ran 2 polls on this. Here's one about the, using, a cleaning thing. I put natural solutions, wax, magical potions, whatever you want to clean a card. 70% of people are totally fine with this. 30%, nope. Down here, I added, is it okay to just wipe a card down? 88% people were fine. 12% people were like, no. Like, if you're not wiping a fingerprint off with a microfiber, come on. Seriously? Like, I don't even understand that concept. But most people are even fine with using something to clean the front of the card with. Like Chrome cards, or you could put a little liquid on there and nothing hurts it. Up here, I asked a similar question about, is it okay to fix that corner? 65% of people had 0 issue with it, and this is almost 600 votes. The previous one was almost 900 votes. And 35% of people say it was altered, that this card is now altered. I would argue that it was altered when this happened. This is altered. This is not its original condition or shape that it came off the line like. This is altered. So is this altered again? I don't know. People are talking about disclosures and stuff like that. To me, the most basic way I could kind of boil this down, and then we'll look at some comic book examples, is stuff like this is like, and the Herbert, this is like getting your car detailed before you go to sell it. If I have a used car and I take it to get detailed, when I go to put it at the corner lot for sale, I don't disclose that I detailed my car. It's like, duh. Yeah, you detailed the car. Of course you did. Now, if someone runs a Carfax report and it got in a wreck and I replaced a bunch of stuff, to me, that's what I view as altered. Hey, the whole right rear quarter panel got smashed and is replaced, or it had water damage or something like that. There's a history of that and it's on a report and it shows. That's how I view an altered card or comic book or whatever. And in comics and cards, if something is trimmed, they'll note, hey, this is trimmed. It'll either get rejected on grading, or like SGC will slap it with an authentic trimmed with a marking on it. To me, that's an altered card. This, cleaning a surface like this, fixing a corner like this, I just personally don't view that as altered. But once again, I'm looking at it from the lens of, in the comic book side of things, this stuff's perfectly normal. Let me show you guys some examples. This here, little crease here on that little spine tick, you can see here, they press that right out. This, 1000% normal, 1,000,000% accepted. Now, part of the reason why I believe, and I talked to some people, is that if you did this and you sent this in like this, the grading companies can't detect it. They have no way of knowing that this was pressed out, because they don't have like magic X-ray glasses that let you see what the book looked like 6 months ago. There's no way for them to detect that this was done. And I'm guessing, same thing with this stuff, they can't detect it. So what are they going to do? So this 1000% fine in the comic book world, and encouraged by CGC. CGC offers a pressing service to get rid of stuff like this. Here's another one. Look at how, I don't want to say warped, but like, wavy that cover is on this Daredevil. And then this is what it looks like after they pressed it out. Cleaned and pressed it. This one is absolutely insane to me. Like, look at how rough this cover is on the left-hand side. And then look what they were able to clean it up with, or up to, rather. Now, I don't know what this graded out after it got sent in. I didn't see that. But, like, this is wild to me. One, it's just wild to me that they can even do stuff like this. It's crazy. I've never been big into, like, art conservation and looking at all the stuff that they could do. Now, If they go too far, CGC will hit it with a purple label. You know, if there's a rusty staple on it and they pull it out and replace it with a new staple, they will 100%, you know, put a purple label on that. If they add paper, add color, trim it, any of that sort of stuff gets hit just like a trimmed card or a color added card would on the sports card side. On the comic side, it's the same way. If you add or remove from the book, it's going to get dinged with a purple label in most cases. This last one is absolutely wild. This is a Daredevil one, first appearance of Daredevil, that was cleaned. And look at the difference between the two. Now, in this case, they do use, in the comic world, they do use some chemicals. I believe hydrogen peroxide is used quite a bit. Don't quote me on that. I'm a little out of my depth here. But there are chemicals used. In fact, there's someone on here that this is not this person's chemicals that they use this, but they purchased basically like the comic version of Kurt's Card Care and used it on this book and obtained these results. And once again, 100% acceptable by CGC. This is going to get sent in and this is going to get blue labeled most likely if it hasn't been already. You know, like this, like look at the difference between those two. To me, this is exactly the same as this. It's just wild to me that we lose our minds over this, and in another collectible market, not exactly the same, but very similar. Cards are paper, comic books are paper. So it's similar mediums to a degree. You know, you're talking about cardboard in one case and paper in another case. And the differences of the communities in regards to what's acceptable and what's not is really wild to me. Though it does seem like, once again, you know, the polling data, at least from my viewers anyway, a majority, 70%, about 65 to 70% of people believe or feel, you know, that stuff like this is okay. And I'm kind of in that camp. Are there lines that could be crossed? Yes. And that's where it gets a little tricky. You know, did someone take things a little too far? You know, if you're doing this, would you take it a step further in color touch or trim or whatever? But as we all know, I mean, how many cards get sent in? You see the ones come back, trimmed, color touched, altered, whatever. How many people have ever, I mean, please let me know in the comments down below. How many people have ever seen a card come back from any grading company marked as cleaned? Oh, not slabbing this. And, you know, Mr. Clean, can't label it. N409, can't clean it. Or can't slab it because it's been cleaned. I have personally never seen a card get rejected from grading for being air quotes cleaned. Never seen it. Please, if you have, please send me the links to the IG photos, whatever. I would love to see if a card's ever been rejected for air quotes cleaning. Because like I said, I've personally just never seen that happen. And I think it goes back to part of the problem is I don't think this stuff can be detected. So when people throw a fit about like, oh my God, how can PSA and BGS and this, that, and SGC and CSG and CGC and whoever else, how are they not cracking down on this stuff? I don't think that they can. I really don't. Remember, they're grading thousands of cards a day, tens of thousands a day in PSA's case. You really think they're going CSI Las Vegas on this stuff? Gil Grissom's up there, you know, checking cards. I don't think so. Curious for your thoughts and comments down below, as always. Once again, you know, I am relatively okay with this, but I am looking at it from someone that plays in the comic book space where this stuff is just readily acceptable. So that's all I have for you guys and girls today. Probably be a spicy comment section. Like, comment, subscribe. Catch you on the next one. Peace.